Well, we'll go ahead and get started, and certainly if he joins us, we'll make note of it. But it sounds like we've got a quorum by the presence of myself, Dr. Morris, Ms. Dickerson, Mr. Ratio, and joining us as well, Mr. Green, advisory member of the board. So I'll call the meeting of the Finance Committee of the CMRTA to order. It's Friday, November 13th. This is a rescheduled meeting because Wednesday, the 11th, was Veterans Day, and it is 10:31 a.m. I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Now entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from the October Finance Committee meeting.
So moved.
Motion from Dr. Morris.
I'll second it, Dr. Morris.
Got a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 That passes unanimously as well. All right. Matters referred to the board, from the board to the committee. I don't think there are any, but any updates there, John?
Mr. Chairman, there's no updates. We have no motions from the board.
All right. Thank you. So we will move on to item number 5, which is our monthly financial report from our finance director.
Hello. I'll be doing pages 13 and a quick overview of page 14. Beginning at page 13, starts out whether we have a net income or net loss, numbers and parentheses mean a loss. So for the month of December, we are currently at a net loss of 428. Year-to-date, just shy of $2 million. We'll continue to get drawdowns done, so hopefully this will level itself out here soon. We also just billed Richmond County for our next penny money. Total revenue year-to-date, 5.28. Again, against our budget, will be three-twelfths of our budget, which is at $35.9 million. We're collecting 15% of our annual budget. Total expenses, and again, including depreciation, 2.46, again, representing 3/12 of our $35.14 million budget. Of that, we're doing 21% of what we annually budget. Both of these revenue and expenses are under the 25% mark for the year. Year-to-date, to RATP Dev includes the one-time, or the first payment of $223,000. Over that, he's asked for a breakout of certain expenses to certain contractors that fall in the professional contract services, our marketing, and our security. Currently, security is just the security services at Commerce Central. Our cash balance is $7.5 million in Wells Fargo. Cash balance at Optus Bank, which include our CD and our reserve account, is 6.4. The LGIP is a combined balance of 17.11. And to date record collections from the penny tax is a little $124 million. The breakout for all cash balances, we have bank statements included if you care to see any of that. Page 14 breaks out where we get the revenues from by certain categories and expenses by main category, falling down to our net income and further breaking out where our cash balance is at. Any questions?
Yes, I have one. On page 15, what is the Older American Act?
Page 15. I'm trying to find, the Older American Act. Sean, would you like to tell them what that is? It's a revenue we have?
Yes, Dr. Morris, we are getting a grant from the Council of Governments to pay for free senior transportation on the common buses, and that's coming through the Older American Act, which is managed by the Council of Governments.
Oh, good, good. Okay, thank you.
We're just waiting for those revenues to come in. I did have a conversation with the Council of Governments, and they committed that we'll get a grant agreement shortly, and then we would bill against that grant agreement every time a senior boards a Comet bus. And it's 2 years worth
Okay.
of funding.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any additional questions for Roz?
Mr. Chair, is this an action item or is this for information only?
Information only. I don't think there's any action we need to take.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody just joined. Who was that? Just for the record.
John Lay.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure if it was a committee member, I wanted that to be in the record.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions for Roz about the operating activity through September? Hearing none, I will move on to item number 6, which is our DBE report from Dr. Prince.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On page 34 of your packet is information regarding the minority and disadvantaged business enterprise tracking. And what I prepared here is information that you'll be able to see a snapshot of where we are in terms of meeting our DBE MBE goal. The chart that you have, I don't know if I updated it. I changed the number for 2 of the payments to DBEs. So the chart that originally was submitted was 2%. That was overall for everything, but it went down to 29.6%. And I'll share information with you in terms of what the changes were. But on the right side of the chart, and one thing I just want to share is that this is just something I put together as a snapshot. If you would like to see something a little different or for me to make any changes, I'll be willing to do that. But on the right side of this, the sheet that I gave you would be the name of the vendor. And as you can see, we have 23 that have an MBE or DBE goal. The next column reflects the amount that the Comet paid to the vendor. And this is year to date. And I pulled this information from our financial register. The next column is the amount that the vendor paid the DBE. And this is based on what they submit to me. Now, if it's 100%, that means that the DBE, the vendor is a DBE, and this is the amount that we have paid them directly. And then I also have a column to reflect the DBE or MBE goal that's in their contract. So you'll see where we are. And the last column reflects the percentage of the goal achieved. And at the very bottom, I have a summary of all the 23 that's listed, the total amount that we paid them. And this is starting from July 1st and it goes up to October 31st. And this is the information. So I went over to the side and I have a monthly summary and I have the total amount that was paid to the vendors, which is around $3.6 million. The amount that was paid to the MBEs, DBEs, and that was around $1.1 million. And then the overall goal achieved was around 29.6%. And this is based on the 23 vendors that are listed on the sheet and the payment based on what we paid them as of, well, starting July 1st up through October 31st. And I'll be willing to, I guess, make any adjustments or anything that you see that you would like to see on this particular document. And one thing I want to share, because I know there's questions about RATP DAIP, and they are included, they are line item number 17. And I did make an adjustment to their DBE payment. I noticed once I went through it, and I didn't realize until after I had prepared the document for release, but they had 2 payments, the same payment for 2 months. So I asked them to go back and look at that. So I went ahead and made the adjustment, but it's reflected on the updated sheet that I prepared. So really their goal achieved to date is around 18%.
You said 18%?
18%. It shows 18%, but when I asked them to look at their documents, there was a payment that was made that wasn't reflected in their report. But I saw it because they had it as an attachment and they showed me all the checks that had been paid. So it was listed on the sheet where it says checks paid, but it wasn't listed in the actual document that they submitted showing these are the payments we made. So really, they shouldn't really be at 20. I think it was around 20%, but based on what they sent me in the original form, it was reflecting 18%.
All right. Does that conclude your report?
Yes, it does, unless there are any other questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Prince. Any questions for Dr. Prince?
Can you remind me, what is the percentage that we want them to be at in the contract?
For the prime contractor, the goal is at least 20%.
20.06%.
And when we originally talked about this, we indicated that we wanted our goal to be higher, and the comment would also include goals in their vendor contracts when they release contracts. So therefore, we would go beyond the 20%.
Is that the 20.6, Dr. Prince?
The 20 you said 20.6%? Are you talking about this?
Yeah, is that the goal? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
Is the 20.6 what we expect, or is it 20%?
Well, when we released the RFP, the request for proposal, we included it had to be at least 20%. But when the prime submitted their proposal, their goal that they submitted was above the 20%.
Dr. Morris, to clarify, the goal that the board approved is 20.6% for RATP debt. That's what they submitted to us on May 15th. So that's what the board adopted.
Okay,
and then
thank you.
the overall agency goal that the board adopted last year is 25%. That includes all of the contracts, including RATP debt.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
And so John and Dr. Prince, at the very bottom of that M/DBE requirement column, where it says, where there's a blank, should that be 25%? Is that what I'm hearing you say, John?
Yes, it should be the total agency goal is 25%. Correct.
So we're at 32.7 overall on a goal of 25 as an agency.
And I updated the spreadsheet, and you probably don't have the updated one. It's at 29.6% because I went back to RATP Deb, and because they had a payment twice, it went down to 29.6%.
Okay. I think I was just interested in making sure I understood how to read this document.
Okay.
I know the numbers are sort of in flux at the moment, and that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood that what we're seeing is 32.7%. What you're saying is more like 29 something is actually, it corresponds to that 25% agency goal.
Yes.
Okay.
We are taking a more proactive monitoring for the other 22 contracts to ensure that they're complying with their respective DBE goals per the new board policy that was adopted last year.
I think this is a really helpful document. Thank you for putting it together this way. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to let Dr. Prince know this is a well-prepared document and it's very helpful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And like I said earlier, if there's anything else you would like for me to share, I can also provide that information as well.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else for Dr. Prince? Questions, comments? Hearing none, thank you, Dr. Prince.
Okay. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, I got to go back up to my agenda here, I'm sorry, kind of toggling back and forth. So discussion and action item 7A, the request to increase our subsidy for Lyft and Uber for Comment on the Go. So John, if you'll introduce that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, page 35 of your packet. As you know, the board adopted a revised service plan, which is basically implementing the COVID-19 service plan as our permanent service for the time being. As part of that, several evening trips were discontinued due to extreme low ridership. And one thing that I wanted to discuss with the board, with recommendations from Dr. Morris, is looking at increasing the subsidy for Lyft and Uber for the Comment on the Go program. Staff is recommending at this time that we look at increasing the subsidy from $5 to $8, and then increase the overall budget by just basically doubling it to $300,000 instead of $150,000. So that the board is aware, or the committee is aware, we have two programs within the Comment on the Go. We have Comment at Night, which runs from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. 7 days a week, including holidays, to address transportation issues at night. And then we have Comment to the Market, which is service to grocery stores from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week, including how long as passengers are boarding in a food desert area, which is primarily the 29203 zip code areas, as well as Batesburg, Leesville, and the lower Richland zip codes. I think that's 29209, going to and from a grocery store that has fresh meats and produce. And all those grocery stores and food desert areas are identified in the Lyft and Uber app. Previously, the board authorized a $150,000 budget for this program, $75,000 for each vendor to fund these programs. With the reduction in evening bus service, I anticipate that the Comment on the Go program will increase. Furthermore, the average Lyft ride and Uber ride, just looking through all the Uber and Lyft trips that were taken since December of 2018, is $8. And that's a distance of about 5 miles. Within that $8, the state imposes a 1% local assessment fee. And then if any trips are made to the Columbia Metropolitan Airport, there's also another $2 service charge. Page 36 gives you an idea on how the cost breakdown works for Lyft and how it breaks down for Uber. So with the average trip costing about $8, staff feels it's appropriate that we set $8 as the subsidy rate, basically increasing by $3. And with the Comment at Night program going to start as early as 8 p.m. and end at 6 a.m. the following morning, I feel it's appropriate that we double the budget to ensure that we can cover all available trips made on the Comment at Night program as well as the Comment to the Market program. Page 37 kind of gives you a summary of the passengers that have ridden each of the programs and each vendor and how much we've spent since December of 2018. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yes, I have a couple questions. First, I would like to thank the staff for making this generous a recommendation. However, I am cognizant of the fact that most of these, or some of these, are very, very poor individuals who just don't have the funds. And I know that presently they're not paying anything to ride the buses. We are cutting some of the routes, and it was recommended that we increase the fare for Uber and Lyft. I know you were generous with $8. I would hope that you would increase it to $10, and let's revisit this at the end of the fiscal year. We do have the funds, and we do sympathize with the poor folks who just don't have these kind of dollars to pay beyond the $8. And I would hope that we would take that under consideration and maybe increase it to $10 for the remainder of this fiscal year and revisit it in June. But I still thank the staff for your generous recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Morris.
Dr. Morris, I don't have, with your recommendation, just based on the patterns right now, $10, we could fund $10 within the 300,000. I would concur, though, that we definitely do revisit this in June just to make sure that that's sustainable. If the passenger demands increase in the latter 6 months of the fiscal year.
All right, thank you.
Any other thoughts from the committee? I take it that, Dr. Morris, your suggestion is up to $10, right? So it's not just a flat subsidy.
Up to $10. Right. Yes, and revisit at the end of this fiscal year.
And John, did I understand you to reply that we could bear that within the budget?
Yes, we can bear that within the budget based on current trip patterns.
John, I had a question. I see the chart there of the people taking it. Do you think that these are those unique individuals, or are those the same individuals all the time, do you think?
So the numbers I'm showing you are actually the passenger trips. So there are some cases where it's the same person making multiple trips. I do have the unique passenger data for it, and if you give me 1 second, I can give you an average of that. Let me just pull up that spreadsheet. I'm going to use last fiscal year as a basis since it's a full year.
Yeah.
For the LIFT program, between the market and the night program, there's about 319 unique individuals on average. And then for the Uber program, there's 115 unique individuals that are using the program.
For the Uber at night, 319 and 115 for the market.
No, it's collective. So for Lyft, it's 319 between both the nighttime and the market program. And then Uber for market and nighttime program, it's 115.
Mr. Andor, aren't you giving us the total number as opposed to those who would be affected by the routes that are cut?
That is correct. So using last year's data, I just averaged out the total number of unique individuals that were using both programs. As it relates to what unique individuals would use the program after the nighttime routes are cut, based on the data that we have, we're transporting approximately 20 to 25 people between those trips that are being cut at night. So we can envision that those will be 25 unique individuals at night added to the Lyft and or Uber program.
John, when you estimate I'm sorry, Mr. Green.
Oh, no. Oh, go ahead.
I'm still on the same chart. When you estimate our total outlay, I guess for fiscal 21, are you assuming that it's going to bounce back to normal ridership? I mean, it's pretty evident that it took a hit back in March, and it's kind of stayed pretty low since then. I know that we're going to pick up riders because of the change in routes, but I'm not sure that I'm seeing evidence of it actually going back to pre-COVID volume. Are we assuming that? No, that's it.
Oh, so right now, It's slow growth just because of COVID. So I don't see it bouncing back to pre-COVID levels, at least this fiscal year. But as the word gets around that we have a $10 subsidy, I could see some additional nighttime trips being created that probably weren't even made on the transit system before, just because the transit system didn't run into those hours. So like, for instance, there could be some people that will now start taking nighttime job opportunities, like at Amazon or at the hospital, because now there's a reasonable way to get to work between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. the following morning. So we're going to, in essence, drum up new business, which we can count as passenger trips towards the transit system.
John, this is just a crazy question, but why do you think that there's more Lyft? I mean, so much more Lyft than there is Uber. Is there a reason for that?
It's brand loyalty. There's in the Columbia market, there's a lot of brand loyalty to Lyft as compared to Uber.
This is Allison. I'll just pipe in here too. I mean, a few years ago, there was definitely kind of a movement away from Uber, like a conscious choice to not use Uber for various reasons, including some of their corporate behaviors.
Yes, Ms. Tracy, you're correct on that as well.
I would just amend the motion to include $10 and revisit it at the end of the fiscal year.
So Dr. Morris, is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Do we hear a second?
I'll second it for if we need to continue discussion.
Okay, so we've got a second from Ms. Dickerson. Discussion, further discussion. I'll just note a slight concern that I think I understand Dr. Morris's concern that $10 really might be a more adequate amount given the distance people are having to travel, like that. My concern is that it's easier to increase the subsidy down the road. It's far more difficult, I think, to decrease it. That's my only concern, personally.
And Mr. Smith, that's a valid concern. We do have to be mindful that if this program explodes and becomes highly successful, and we have budget challenges in the future, yes, going down will be a challenge. I figured that's kind of why I started initially with 8, was I figured that we see how 8 works out, and then if need be, come back at a later date to go to 10. But capacity-wise, we can go to 10 either way.
Well, that's fine. That's fine, Mr. Andrew. I withdraw my motion if Council Lady Dixon withdraw her second.
Yeah, I would withdraw my second. I second it so we can have ample discussion, Dr. Morris. So I'll be glad to withdraw. Thank you.
If you'd like, we could do a re-review in March and then a re-review in June to see if the subsidy is appropriate. If that's the pleasure of the Finance Committee, to make sure that we aren't significantly impacting the lower income communities with an $8 subsidy versus a 10.
That would be fine, but I think it, okay, review it in March and then again in June. Okay, fine, thank you.
So Dr. Morris, this is Andy. I have no strong aversion to $10. I just, it's more that I realize that if we go to that, and it's hard to, it would be hard to go to reduce it. But I mean, I personally could go either way. It's not a big deal, and I would be in, I'm more interested in the mind of the committee than I am in my own thoughts on that.
Well, Mr. Chair, considering what Mr. Andor just said, we got open minds in terms of this $8 is temporary. We're going to revisit it, and if we need to change it one way or another, we can do that.
Okay.
At a later date.
So
We get
I guess, John,
in our analysis, we get the full cost of a Uber or Lyft trip in our invoices. So we can see basically how much, if people are doing the trip within the subsidy or if they have to add on additional fare. So as part of our analysis, right now, based on the data we've gotten, $8 seems to be the average fare. So people are adding an extra $3 right now. If we see that even with the subsidy increase, that we still see more people adding, like, let's say another $2 more or $3 more, we'll share that information with the committee so that they're aware that it does appear that if we want to fully cover those that have been impacted by the elimination of nighttime bus service, that $10 makes sense, and we'll have the data to present that.
All right, thank you.
hey, John, just one more question. I think I'm reading this right. Are you saying at the bottom, so the bottom thing that says vendor cost tracking, is that the total money that we are paying to them then? So in
Yeah,
fiscal
so
year
by fiscal
35,
year-
I mean 18, 19? Yeah.
Yes, that's
Would be
correct. And it's
35,000?
broken out- That's correct, and it's broken out by program and by vendor.
Okay. So we're only spending about $6,000 now per year.
As of this fiscal
I mean,
year,
in
yeah,
this
so we're
fiscal year.
significantly under budget. As of.
And the fiscal year started in June, right? Or July?
July, correct.
Yeah, and that was kind of my earlier point, that the ridership really seems suppressed compared to last year.
Yeah, last year, as you can see, where we were about $8,000 off from me hitting the actual budgeted, the maximum budget for the program.
Any any other comments or questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we follow the motion of the staff.
I second the staff, Mr. Dr. Morris, of the staff recommendation.
And Dr. Morris, did you want to add that staff will return in March to revisit the subsidy spending?
Yes, March and June.
March and June, yes.
All right, so with that slight amendment, Ms. Dickerson, you accept that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, I think that was unanimous. All right, so the next item, number 7B, I believe it is award propane contract to Palmetto Propane due to the failure of AmeriGas to meet contract requirements.
Yes,
Ms. Rando.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm just asking the committee to recommend to the board of directors to authorize the executive director to negotiate, and upon successful negotiations, execute a contract with Palmetto Propane to provide propane fuel for a 3-year contract if AmeriGas was to default in meeting their contract requirements. We are having we've had a contract with AmeriGas since 2014, and the board authorized a new contract with AmeriGas at the February 2020 Board of Directors meeting based on an RFP released in 2019. So we had a previous 5-year agreement. While transitioning from the 2014 to the 2020 contract, we're having some difficulty with AmeriGas in installing a new dispenser installing a fuel management system is requested by the comment, installing new tanks or thoroughly cleaning the tanks that were installed in the previous contract, ensuring that the construction of the tanks are compliant with local, state, and federal laws, and then establishing and managing a network of outlying fuel locations, since we have buses utilizing propane in Northeast Richland, Southeast Richland, Lexington County, where it's more cost effective to fuel them in the outer outskirts of our service area than to deadhead them back to the common to change out a bus or to fuel them. Our engineering firm that is managing the of this contract and the installation of the new tanks and the fuel management system has reported to us that they're not complying with the terms of the 2020 contract. For instance, we have tanks that were installed on cement blocks that are not reinforced. We've not gotten satisfactory documentation that the older tanks from 2014 has been thoroughly cleaned along with the pipeline. And as a result, we've issued them a notice of deficiency. I'm bringing this in advance to the committee and ultimately to the board is that because we need propane fuel to fuel 40 of our buses, if they're not able to comply with the requirements of the contract, I didn't want us to have a lapse in service, which can impact 40 vehicles, and that we have discussed with Palmetto Propane, and they're ready and willing to jump in, not able to deliver. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. Andor, you have been communicating with AmeriGas?
Yes, I have. Myself and Brownstone Engineering, who is our project manager, to ensure that all the deliverables of the construction are being met.
So they are aware of all the deficiencies?
Yes, we've had 3 conference calls. They've given us a letter that they're going to address those deficiencies, and we're just basically waiting to see if they address them or not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ando? So John, the committee needs to make a recommendation to the board, correct?
That is correct, since this was a board-approved contract.
And basically what you're asking the committee to consider is that we authorize you to, if negotiations fail or if on the existing contract, we authorize you to terminate that contract and enter into a contract with Palmetto.
That is correct.
That's what the board would consider at its next meeting.
That is correct. So we're not terminating AmeriGas today. We've given them a notice of deficiency, and we're asking them to address those points I meant. If they address those points, we'll continue the contract with AmeriGas. If they can't address those points or refuse to address those points, then I would immediately go into upon board approval, go into negotiations with Palmetto Propane to execute a new agreement. And they've committed that they will implement those items that were required in the 2019 RFP.
This is Allison. I have a question about what are the, I'm sorry if I missed this, financial implications of ending the current contract?
There would be no financial implications except paying for the canopy, which in the contract we agree that that's a pass-through. The tank and the dispenser and the fuel management expense is wrapped into the cost of the fuel.
Okay.
And the contract does allow for us to terminate for convenience or terminate for default.
Okay, so there's no, like, we're not going to have to pay to get out of this.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ando or a motion?
I would move to, I don't know exactly how to word it, approve this request.
I would second, I guess it's the staff would be the staff recommendation. Is that what we are actually approving? That's the way you're describing it, Ms. Teratio?
Yes, move to approve staff recommendation.
I second it.
Okay, any discussion? One more quick question that I have, John. What's the scale of this contract? What's the annual outlay?
Do you have an idea on how much we spend on propane annually?
Andy, I do not off the top of my head, but that is a fuel cost summary sheet that we include as part of the financial section. If you guys want to go back to it, you can see what's paid to propane and diesel.
Okay.
That's on page, one second, 16 of the packet.
Look at page, and Jonathan, page 16, I'm trying to.
We budgeted,
900.
like we budgeted $900,000 for propane.
Yep, see that.
And we've spent approximately $91,000 year to date.
Does the contract, does it contemplate a certain scale or a certain amount of either a dollar amount or usage, gallons used or whatever?
It does not.
Okay, so it's just sort of a standing agreement that whatever we use, we pay for.
That's correct. We gave our previous year estimates in the RFP. So the rack rate that they based their initial pricing on was based on the dollar spend that they saw from historical use.
Gotcha.
That's why.
But we made no, we didn't
for
attest,
American.
we didn't attest to any amount guaranteed.
No, we did not put a guarantee in this RFP.
All right.
I didn't want to bound the agency to a minimum guarantee when we wrote this RFP.
Right. Okay, any other questions? All right, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, I think that passed unanimously as well. I think that's all that we have in item number 7. As for nothing in item 8, requiring executive session, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anything else for the good of the committee members or staff?
Oh, I'm good.
All right, all right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Very good meeting.
Got a
Thank
motion
you.
and a second. Yep, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll see you, I guess, in a week or so for the full board.
Mr. Smith, who seconded? I apologize.
I think Ms. Tracy seconded.
Okay,
Yes,
all right,
second.
thank you.
Do we need to vote?
Yeah, sure, take a vote. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I think that's unanimous. All right,
Okay. Thank you.
everybody
all.
have a good day.
Have
Thank
a
you.
great day. Thank you. Goodbye.